This episode of A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live is brought to you in part by Viewfinder's Identity Search and Design. Your choice for web design, graphic design, and all multimedia development needs. Visit VFISAD.com and let us bring your vision to reality.
Hey, what's happening? This is TC Carson, and you are listening to A.C.M.G's Talk Time Live. And this is Kratos. Keep listening.
It's time. Talk time. Let's go. Anime, comics, movies, and games that come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games that come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games that come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games that come on and let's get it. Talk time. Live. Started in the 80s with Matt Cross. Dudes in the hood might have called that soft, but I carried that cross like Jesus did. Fast forward, I teach the kids to learn how to let go, live life, and show love to all things that don't matter where y'all from. And luckily there's a show called Talk Time. We've been waiting for this for a long time. Dax kicks the facts on all the geek news, special guests and unbiased reviews. Suburban kids, the hipster street dudes, all can learn something new. Me too. I heard words when no faith is empty. I stayed the course so my haters tempt me. Beat the podcast, that'll make them envy. It ain't too trendy, it's A.C.M.G. Anime, comics, movies, and games that come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games that come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games that come on and let's get it. Talk time. Anime, comics, movies, and games that come on and let's get it. Talk time. Live.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live, the Prime Show. I am your host, Xavier Josiah. Folks, happy Father's Day. Not just happy Father's Day, but happy Father's Day to all of the fathers that are really dedicated to doing the title great. And all the good fathers out there. You know, being a father, or mother especially, is not the easiest thing in the world. I mean, much to people's misconceptions, it is a lot, both financially, both just taking on the task. It's not easy. And there are some fathers out there that are really doing their thing, that are helping to raise their kids in this crazy world of ours, and hopefully building them to make a better world for us. So to that, I say thank you to all of the really good fathers out there. Shout out to you all. But unfortunately, this is not a Father's Day episode. This is a Jessica Jones episode. And in fact, we're going to review the final season of not only just Jessica Jones, but the entire Netflix saga from Marvel. And we're going to talk about that. It was a very interesting season, so we're going to talk about that in our talk topic of the week. And we got some other news to talk about as well. Not too much, but very juicy enough. And some praises I want to give. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's find out what's new in the world of A.C.M.G.
And now, it's time to find out what's new in the world of A.C.M.G.
All right, so just for the record, this is Wizard World Philly weekend, and I have not attended, and mostly because I've been to quite a few Wizard Worlds, and it's like never anything really intriguing. The last Wizard World that I went to wasn't that special, so I decided to opt out of that, and I probably would have been there this weekend if not for the fact, but Wizard World for Philadelphia has not been the same. First time I ever went was in 2013, I believe, and then, that was when I got to meet Stan Lee and, see his Q&A and everything, really great Q&A. And the second one was when Chris Evans and I forgot his name. I always say Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie. That was a really good one. I love that, and their panel was really fun and great. And you could go all see that in YouTube if you could look up YouTube Wizard World Philly. It was really awesome that they were there and to talk about everything that they were doing with that. So that was great. And then the years leading down, it was just the quality was just not there. So I wasn't anticipating in really going to this one in particular. So I'm trying to get feedback from people, see if they went to our members in the A.C.M.G. Facebook group in Philly and see if they actually went and how did they like it or whatever. Hopefully more season, goers, I can get some feedback through some. I'm actually waiting for the sophomore event of Keystone Comic-Con, which that will be coming in August, and they're still working out, guests and see if they were going to be, see if the sophomore year is going to be able to follow up with the really good first year, a really, really good first year that they had. So we'll see about that, but we'll find out more news as it develops from there. But bigger news here, much bigger news, really exciting news. It's the news that many fans have been waiting for, many fans of this particular series, this particular comic strip, and we've been waiting for this, and now we got the absolute official confirmation. Last time it was from John Witherspoon. Now we got it from, Sony themselves. It has been announced. The 5th season of the Boondocks is officially coming back. Not only that, the bigger news and the one that we're waiting for the most, the return of creator Aaron McGruder as possibly director and writer of the series. And this has led to a lot of praise and happiness from fans all over because they felt that the 4th season did not live up. It was the season that he was actually out. He didn't write for that season. He wrote for the 3rd season. But that, interestingly so, the 3rd season was kind of the season 2 that people were starting to crap on. But that's nor here nor there. The 5th season didn't have him at all. And it winded up being the most diluted series of the entire thing. And it kind of put a damper on it. So what they're going to do now is they're going to do a completely revision and reboot. It sounds like a reboot. It really sounds like a reboot, but here's what it says from Sony Pictures. Sony Pictures Animation announced that the Agency International Animated Film Festival that a complete reimagining of the show for the modern era was on the way, and to added bonus, the show's creator Aaron McGruder is on board for the reboot. Now, it's funny that they're saying a modern era because it wasn't that long ago that the show was out. It's really that crazy. It's like, even if you watch the old, episodes, it's not that far away, and it's not that irrelevant that it can't be continued. But at the same time, I get what's going on right now. There's a whole new source of hot mess going on right now in the world that Aaron McGruder has probably been chomping at the bits to talk about. And I'm looking forward to seeing it because the main target. You know who the main target is going to be. And I'm sure there's going to be other targets that he's going to focus on. It would be remiss if he didn't talk about Roseanne in some parts of this series. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to cover. If you haven't seen the Boondocks, it's a really great series. It's not a kid series at all. It's by far. It's an African-American. It's a series based on African-American cast, crew. And it covers a lot of social issues within the African-American community, the culture, which focus in the United States, and everything that goes on around it. And it doesn't hold back. At least when Aaron McGruder was writing it and he does the comic strips, he does not hold back on situations that's going on around the world. And it's deep. It's always entertaining, but it also really deep. One of my favorite episodes lies when he talks about what if Martin Luther King was still alive. And it takes you to this whole entire what if type of situation. It's really deep. It is insanely deep. It doesn't hold back on issues. It's a really thought-provocative, heavy comedy, animated comedy. But also, it celebrates animation in such a great way because it puts African Americans in a great light, animated-wise, because it's some of the most beautiful animated character designed that we ever seen in almost any animation. Like Aaron McGruder's a huge fan of anime, so he made his series, in a tribute to anime. It wasn't anime in particular, but it was anime-esque, and they paid no expense for the look of this show. It was really great, and it's even the 4th season, as crappy the writing was, the animation was still there. It was really good. But they just showed on Aaron McGruder's actual Instagram page, they showed a picture of the first look of the new design for Huey Freeman on Instagram. And his Instagram is called Boondocks Bootleg, at Boondocks Bootleg. So you can check it out there. And it looks really good. It looks really good. You could tell some of the different features going on. I remember one of our members of A.C.M.G was actually saying, like, looks the same. Like, nah, there are differences. The eyes are different. The hairstyle is different. There's thicker, there's a thicker outline to it this time, almost like a cell shade from a video game type of way. Colors are different. The skin tone color is different. I mean, there's a lot of it's different, but still keeping the fundamentals of the look of the design. So it's not completely different, but I would call it an upgrade, if you will. So I am very much looking forward to seeing how they're going to do this and, what it's going to look like. And hopefully it could be back on track. And it looks like all of the cast is also coming back too. Like I said, John Witherspoon is going to be Granddad Freeman as well. And of course, we said this before, and it looks like she will be coming back, but we got Regina King coming back, playing the role of both Hubie and Riley. And I'm sorry, they can between her and John Witherspoon, you cannot change those two. She did such a great job doing both voices to the point that you didn't realize that she was doing both voices, because their characteristics and their personas were so different and their voices were so different. It's awesome. This is the reason why she won an Oscar. This is why she's so talented, man. She's outstanding. So I'm very much looking forward to it. Very much anticipating the series coming back. So we don't know anything else other than it's coming back. We don't know a due date. I'm predicting sometime in 2020. It's going to take a while to do all these episodes, put all this in, to get that animation done, right? And hopefully, I hope the quality of animation is still there, because the character design is still there, but the quality of animation, there's a lot to it why it made it so well. And I feel like it was like the animated version of Black Panther, where it put people of color visually. It put people of color visually in a good light that was never seen anywhere else. And sometimes, I mean, Aaron tells some truths in the writing of his show, so you gotta, it is what it is sometimes. But it is a great series. It tells the truth. It makes everybody talk. And I'm looking forward to having these talks again in this type of form. I really, really am looking forward to this, so I can't wait. So let's talk some other news. Talk about people of color. I've talked about on this show so many times how much I both praise and have issues with IGN. IGN is the entertainment, one of the biggest entertainment media hubs out there. They have grown exponentially in quality and just everything. They used to be all games, but now they just moved out to, pretty much all the fandom formats right there. And the one thing that always taken me back and really bothered me, the back of it just really bothered me. I don't want to say, I can't say what the cause is. I don't know if it's on ill intent or whatever, or whatnot. But just every time I saw these really great charismatic hosts on the show, it's always the same thing. And it's predominantly white in there. And I don't want to get into the race thing, but too much. But I don't think that any of those guys are racist by any stretch. But it's just always a situation where I always felt that there was not nearly enough representation. There was always female representation there. They always got these gorgeous looking women in there to really attract the target audience that they're attracting, which is always great. And it's not just that they're getting attractive women, they're getting women who actually know the format that they're doing. So it's not like they're just thirst trapping. No, these women are highly educated and are true fans of these genres, of these fandoms. So I thought that was always great. There is a lot more people than Morgan Webb out there. There's a new generation of Morgan Webb, host out there. And I say Morgan Webb because Morgan Webb was the first, really true model out there. Gorgeous woman, still is. But she was the first true to life gamer girl that she just happened to be on Maxim and all that stuff, but she was true to life gamer. And I used to love her in X-Play. She was phenomenal. She almost had this Jenny McCarthy persona, but just for video games. Very entertaining, very charismatic, always comedy, great comedy. Charisma was all that. And she wasn't hard to look at. So, but they had all this format. They got all that down. They're virtually, as close to, G4 as you could possibly be without being on the network. But again, the lack of color representation, people of color in general, male or female, was just lacking every single year. And I watch IGN every year, whether it was from E3 or just in general, and it just always bothered me. Whether, I would love to be a part of that cast, but also I'd rather just them hire somebody that it just felt like it just gave this painted canvas and this inference that only Caucasian people, Asian people, people from the Netherlands, I guess sometimes, were only educated to understanding the fandom of video games and all that such. And it just wasn't the case. And I know there's a lot of other people out there that I know that we know just as much of them, if not more. Some people are in the field, I don't see it all the time. Sony always brings it. Nintendo, especially recently, Nintendo really brings it, the diversity there. So I remember Sony's conference last year, they had some really great diversity in there. I feel like everybody but IGN up until now. Because now, for the first time in years at an E3 conference, we got to see a woman of color, not just one, but two, actually. And it's a small margin, but it's a start. So I do want to bring praise and shout out to A.C.M.G. Lowenson and Janet Garcia. I felt like a weight was taken away from me when I saw them on there, along with the regular cast. And by the way, the regular cast are great. I love those guys. They're really great and fun to talk, to listen to and, to hear about what's going on. It's just, I want to get a perspective from other people of culture, not just one or two aspects. And, seeing Janet Garcia there and being able to hear her articulate very intelligently of all of the things that I love, it warmed my heart just seeing that. So I hope to see more of her there. A.C.M.G. Lowenson, this guy is awesome. I saw him just recently. He was covering E3 and he did a segment on the games that were no shows and also the Dragon Ball Z. The Dragon Ball segment was the Dragon Ball Kakarot segment was the first time I saw him. This guy is insanely charismatic. He is very entertaining. He felt like he was very comfortable on the mic and talking to people, and it was fantastic to see. Not only that, I looked down on the forum in there, and normally IGN's forum is really kind of brutal sometimes because it's just like the best of the bitter are on there, and everybody got something bitter to say about everything. People were talking about their kind of disdain for the Dragon Ball Kakarot game, which I actually liked. I actually think there's some potential to that, and I like where they're going with that. They haven't really screwed up on a Dragon Ball game, in my opinion, but they gave more negativity to that, but they gave a lot of praise to A.C.M.G, and that was really good. I really appreciated that, and I love seeing. I want to see more of both, and even more of people, more hosts as we go along. Just balance it out, because I want that TMZ feel. I want to see that TMZ feel, and that's what I kind of wanted for A.C.M.G too. I want diversity. I want equality. Doesn't matter who you are. You're a fan of it. If you're intelligent about it, if you make the right points, if you give the right perspective, I'm all for it. I am so all for that. And, I just hope that this is the beginning of change for it all, because we need to see it off of it. And I want to see it from IGN because I do love their brand. I love the brand of what they've done for years. And it's just, like I said, it's just grown in quality. Very much. So shout out to those two. You can follow A.C.M.G Lowenson at Geek Heavy on Twitter. You can find Janet Garcia at Game Anonymous. Or let me rephrase that because it's Greek. It's Game Onassis, and she got the idea. It's it's a play on the Greek Greco-Roman type of thing. So she's the god of gaming, or the goddess of gaming, if you will. So Game Onassis is the name of her Twitter page. So you could, and just for the record, let me spell it out. It's spelled GAMONYSSIS. S-U-S. So it's Gay Monesis. So go out and check her out there. And it'd be really cool if I could actually get in touch with her on the show. I gave her praise on Twitter, and, she was greatly appreciative, and all the, some of the other cast members, the editors and such at IGN. It was really cool that she reached out for that. So deservedly so. I hope to see, more of her on camera as well. So let's switch on to something that I was thinking about, continuing off on our Square Enix Marvel Avengers take on things. In my office here, I have right inside of me is a display of figures and such that collectibles, exclusives, if you will, from San Diego Comic-Con, which is coming up very soon, by the way. One of which that I'm glad that I was able to get the second time I attended San Diego Comic-Con, but I missed out on the first time, and I was like, I don't know when the next time I'll be at San Diego Comic-Con, so I'm getting this. And that was the Spider-Man figure by, who is the artist? By Hitoshi Kondo. Hitoshi Kondo and Square Enix Toys. And for those who don't know, Square Enix does have a toy line. A very exclusively great toy line that is usually a popular item in E3. It was there when I was there in 2014. It was still there in 2017. So that tells you enough that people are going at it. It shows some of the latest exclusive figures that Square Enix puts out for some of the most exquisite video games that they ever have. With all the a lot of the Final Fantasy series, their figures for that. Of course, Cloud. If you remember, there's going to be an exclusive figure for Square Enix coming out for the Final Fantasy remake, which really almost enticed me to want to go physical copy on this one instead of digital. But who are we kidding? I'm going digital. But the figure looks really great, and this will be the Japanese equivalent of McFarlane Toys. It's a lot of attention to detail, great design, and stuff like that. Hitoshi Kondo does some really great figures, and he has a series of Marvel figures that he's put together. And I'm looking at this figure, and I'm wondering, why in the holy hell did Square Enix not think of doing a game based on the designs of Hitoshi Kondo? Look, if you've seen any of these collectible figures of the Square Enix series and these Marvel series figures, they are awesome. It's a Final Fantasy take on Marvel's franchise. So I'm looking at this, and I looked at the box. I still have the box with me, and with the pieces and everything. And I'm looking at this, it's like, oh my God, did they miss out on a great opportunity? I think if they would have focused the visuals on Hitoshi Kondo's design and not on the movie, rather than the anime style of Hitoshi Kondo, I think it would have got a lot more praise. The reason why I think people are liking what they did on Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 that's coming out, counting down in about a month from now, is because it has this very cel-shaded, cartoony, but comic book feel to it. It does not look like the actual movie. It wasn't trying to look like the movie. It was trying to look like its own thing. It was more paying respect to the comic series. And that's awesome. That's the way we loved it. And when we saw it, we gave it high praise. People went crazy. They went nuts for it at the reveal at the Game Awards last year. So here we have this new Marvel Avengers movie, which in all essence, it could probably be really good. Gameplay wise, especially, it's probably looking to be really good. People are kind of praising the gameplay that they saw and didn't play, but they saw. So we don't know if the controls are fluid yet, so take that into consideration. But they also, it just happens to look like they were focusing it on the movie aspect. Even though it's not based on the movie, you can't help but to focus on the movie. So you can't also help how fans are reacting to saying, like, okay, this obviously looks like the movie based on the look, based on the fact of the characters that they chose for the movie. It's pretty obvious. Now, here's the funny thing. In an interview, if you guys see during E3 week, in an interview with IGN, one of the developers claimed that the choice of characters and the style that they chose was highly coincidental and not based on a movie. I'm sorry, I gotta go back to, Enter the Dragon. Bullshit, Mr. Haman. There is no way in Hades. I think people are not falling for this at all. There is no way in Hades that they are going to tell me and tell our viewers and tell the viewers that looking at this trailer and the footage that people saw, that this game was not at all loosely based on that movie. No way. Yeah, they don't look like the characters. They obviously don't look like the characters, but you can't tell me that the whole feel and the premise and the feel of this game is not trying to be based on the movie. That's if it was truly not, y'all would have went for a whole different look. But that look looks incredibly like I hate when corporate sometimes tries to hide things. I would respect a company much better if they were so straight up. And there are companies out there that are straight up of what they're doing, what they did not do, the mistakes that they made. Consumer base are more fans of people who absolutely are straight up with their fan base and will root for you more to make it better. And will be more, sympathetic towards your journey. If you look at Japan companies, if they mess up on something, they are really, they apologize profusely and hopes and very, very much, I can't find the word for it, but they very much do their best passionately to make sure that they don't fail you again. And when you see them, in such a way, it's endearing and it makes you want to root for them again. Like, that's okay. It's fine. Just do your best, keep it the best, and give us the best game that you could give. That's when I come back to it. That's my always take from when I watch Japanese developers and they announce stuff like that. I always think it's very considerate. When people, get on the camera and try to do and say stuff like that. And another thing that made me, I cracked up on when they said that they spent no expense on the talent for this game. And that is true from an aspect of, if you're looking for the top voice talent, there is nobody bigger from the voice from voice acting than Nolan North and Troy Baker. That is absolutely a fact. They paid no expense for that. But to say that you paid no expense, you say that to people who were looking at this game and looking at this game that looks like that's based on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and you pay no expense. Paying no expense mean that you would pay out the money to get, Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Mark Ruffalo. It's just like, that's paying no expense. You paid the top dollar for the top voice actors. That's what you did. And that's fine. That is absolutely fine. So I just thought, you got to choose your words carefully, especially around a group of people who are trying to figure out why you're doing what you're doing from there. But again, I think they should have went all out. This is Square Enix, for God's sakes. I know it's Crystal Dynamics and Eidos, which I still don't understand, why they decided to want to work with them to make this, which is, there's no disrespect to Crystal Dynamics or Eidos, because they do phenomenal game development. What is it? Tomb Raider is an extremely great game. I haven't played the sequel, but the first one is so good. And I heard the second one is really good as well. But working with them to develop a game done by Square Enix, who does phenomenal work. I just finished playing Final Fantasy 15 Pocket and finally beat that game. That game is so awesome. It's every bit as awesome as Final Fantasy 15, the actual real game, the original game that's on the PlayStation and Xbox. That game is awesome. I don't understand why we couldn't have got a Square Enix style game based on the Marvel Universe, done by Hitoshi Kondo. Are you kidding me? You missed out on a great opportunity for that. But as I'm saying, it is what it is. They have it. Even if they even made skins based on Hitoshi Kondo, which I honestly, at this case, I think that they would, but it will be so out of place because his design is so, eccentric to the anime world more than it is this real photorealistic version that they're making right now. I don't know, man. I think they dropped the ball. After I looked at this figure and then went online to look at the other figures, because they got Captain America, they got Captain America figures. They have also Thor, and a few others in the Marvel Universe. Magneto and Cyclops looks awesome. But just looking at that, and I looked at that for a while, and I looked at the trailer, I'm like, they missed out on a great... This is Square Enix, for God's sake. They have some of the best art styles in the history of gaming. I credit them, and I credit Capcom through all their years of illustrations and such. Bandai Namco is also with Soul Calibur and all that. I mean, like, there's some really great art styles out there. And to not see any type of get a Square Enix game without the Square Enix feel, dude, it to me, it's just, I think they just dropped the ball on this. Absolutely. So, but I mean, well, let's just say they dropped the ball from a standpoint of they could have given us the Square Enix flair with a Marvel product, and they didn't. That's not saying that the game won't be great, it won't be good. I just think that, you know, you got Square Enix doing it. Come on, give us what Square Enix does best. You know, that's just my take on that. So, last bit of news that I have is a anime that I want people to look out for. Got a notice from Funimation now. I have this subscription. It's a really great subscription. It's only $5.99 a month. Some of the best things you could ever have if you're an anime fan. Very well, reasonably priced. And there is an anime based on a weekly shonen magazine series about a fire brigade, or firefighters, that fights off a phenomenon called the spontaneous human combustion, which is humans who turn into living flames, called infernos. This anime is in fact called Fire Force. I saw this trailer and I was like, oh, this is something different. I like where this is going. So this, based on that series, I mean, you have a group of firefighters fighting against like flame demons that's called infernos. There are different generations of infernos, including ones who can manipulate flames without turning while still in human form. The main character here is a character named Shinra Kusakabe, who is nicknamed the Devil's Fire Footprint due to his ability to ignite flames from his feet. Shinra joins a group of other flame users known as the Special Fire Force Company 8 to extinguish evil infernos and find out the mysterious cause of the fire that killed his family. All of this is very intriguing. If you own Funimation, go out of your way to look out for this. I don't know if this is going to be in Crunchyroll either, but I love what this looks. It is, to the credit, it is a firefighter anime. Yeah, I mean, at best, it is. It's not. It just goes beyond the realm of firefighters in such a way that is awesome. And I have somebody in my group, Nicholas Billups, on our A.C.M.G group, who is aspiring to be a firefighter. You know, kudos to him and everybody out there who works as a firefighter. You know, some of the most not easy. You know, we need them. We need them out there, and I get scared of everybody who actually ventures that, because it's a very hard job to do. But I did want to point out, I'm like, okay, hopefully it's not for the fact that you're thinking that you're going to be fighting half the demons, like fire demons and such like that in this here, because it's not the case. But, you know, people got inspired by, what is that? People got inspired by Dragon Ball Z. A lot of people got inspired by Dragon Ball Z. Ronda Rousey, I always say that a lot. Ronda Rousey credits her training to Goku. So who's to say that this anime won't inspire, you know, firefighters alike? I just want to point out that you will not be able to use, you know, high level mixed martial arts or the use of fire manipulation of any kind. So just want to point it out. But go out of your way to check it out. It's coming out soon. It's coming out in July, actually, too. Not only that, I want to give a shout out. Young Justice just put out a notice that July 2nd, they're going to be putting out their second season as well. So go out of your way to look out for that. Another reason why to own the DC Universe app as well. Pending that rumor has it that they're going to be stopping the DC Universe app. So I don't know how true that is, but we'll see. I've only heard it from one source, so I don't know how true that is. So I'm not even going to talk about too much. But folks, that will do it for what's new in the world of A.C.M.G. I'm going to take a break, come back, and talk about the final season of Jessica Jones. How did this series end all of it? We'll find out right after this. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dak Xavier Josiah, the host of A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live, the podcast. You want to catch up with all of our podcast shows and hear from some of the hottest names in all of anime, comics, movies, and games, such as...
This is Miley Flanagan, the voice of Naruto.
This is Stephanie Shea, the voice of Sailor Moon.
This is Ruben Langdon, voice of Ken Masters and Dante from Devil May Cry.
Hey there, this is Kyle Hebert, the voice of Ryu from Street Fighter V.
This is Chris Battle, character designer of Teen Titans Go.
Here's your chance to check out all of that and more on TalkTimeLive.com. TalkTimeLive.com provides all of our ACMG content with new and previous episodes, exclusive interviews, articles, and much more. Visit TalkTimeLive.com and let us help you learn to let go, live life, and love all things ACMG.
Talk Time Live.
This is Miley Flanagan, the voice of Naruto, and you are listening to ACMG Presents Talk Time Live. Believe it!
Do it.
And now it's time for our talk topic of the week. Ready? Play!
All right, folks, we are back with our talk topic of the week, and this is my review of Jessica Jones Season 3. Not only just Season 3, but the final season to the series, and the final season to the entire Netflix saga. This is it. There's nothing coming back after this, and which is really sad because they had a really great, powerful run. The Punisher's been great. Luke Cage has been awesome. Jessica Jones, of course, the Peabody Award-winning series has been fantastic. They had a great first season of this, and it was not without his bumps in the road. And I mean, Iron Fist Season 1. Season 2 was a bit more redeeming, but it was too little too late because Netflix suddenly decided that they wanted to cancel out the Marvel series. And now we know why, because now they're looking to create a group of Dark Horse Comics series to do their own lineup and say that they can do it just as well. And with the Umbrella Academy starting off really strong, I can't say that it wasn't a bad idea. But with that said, we're ending off a path of great series. Now, when it comes to Jessica Jones, the first season was absolutely fantastic. I mean, it was absolutely fantastic from a standpoint of just gripping noir tale detective story. I loved it. She had a great antagonist as well, and Kilgrave, played by David Tennant, to most folks, Doctor Who, if you will. But he made a great, absolutely fantastic antagonist. In fact, is probably voted one of the greatest Marvel villains in the cinematic universe, if you will. Probably up, I would say, up there with Wilson Fisk, Thanos, you name it. They're in the top, like within the top 10. And it's just really sad that it's going to end like this. But I gotta say, for this season, it ended really well. It ended on a great note. I thought the season was absolutely really fantastic and really got back on the swing of things. Because, I mean, like I said, the first season was great because of David Tennant's performance as Kilgrave, and, a.k.a. the Purple Man. And how do you follow up a strong antagonist like that? You have to come out. And I felt like season 2 wasn't as great as the first season because it didn't have a really great gripping antagonist as it was. Now, granted, the mom storyline was okay, but it didn't pick up nowhere near as great as the first season. How was the third season going to gel, and was the newest villain or villains going to live up to the potential? And I don't think it still didn't, in a sense, because Kilgrave was just so damn good. It was so convincing. His performance alone, like David Tennant's performance alone, was just incredible. But what this lacked an antagonist, it gained in the storytelling. And it in fact, the third season, in my opinion, it kind of made the second season more redeemable because of the storytelling. Everything just went full circle. Because we had a storyline that consists of Gregory Salinger, who, comic book fans, if you're really hardcore Marvel comic book fan, you'll know this name. He is from the Mercs with Mouths, I believe, Deadpool's, group of assassins or mercenaries, and he's known as Foot Killer in Marvel Comics. And here he is which I believe there may be a comedic sense of humor version of him in the comics, but in hindsight, he's meant to be a serial killer. in this series, and he does it really well. He does some really sadistic things in here, and all of this to antagonize Jessica Jones because he feels that she doesn't know what she wants to be, or she's a fraud, if you will. She pretends not to want to be a superhero, but she does, and he goes all out to try and antagonize her in the worst way, including going after some of her close and personal people in her life. And by the way, this is going to spoil some things too. So if you haven't seen the series yet and you're looking to see the series, and you don't want to be spoiled, don't listen to this. I'm just letting you know right now before I get too deep into things. But I thought this was really great because although Gregory Salinger, played by Jeremy Bobb, and I thought he did a tremendously great job, because if you look at him in hindsight, if you just draw an inference of this guy, he just looks like your normal everyday dude, like a neighbor, if you will, in the neighborhood. But this dude is just, do not misconcept his ability to really come at you and kill you. Because this guy was very convincing, absolutely convincing, and he played to that. He played to his normality really well in this series, and I loved what he did here, and he really put Jessica to the test. Excuse me. I thought Kristen Ritter did as great as always. She played her role really well, but a real big focus, which people didn't realize after a while, is not as much as the villain of, the Foot Killer, as much as it is Trish, her adopted sister, her foster sister, if you will, or not her adopted sister, but her sister, because Jessica is actually the foster child in this whole thing. But Trish, who all through season 1 and season 2 have been wanting to be more than what she is, and she's a child actress growing up, and she's trying to get into the world of entertainment a little bit more, but she felt like she always wanted to do more. She wanted to be as great as Jessica. She was always fascinated with what Jessica has been doing throughout her life, being a superhero or trying to be a good person, being a detective, more or less than not a superhero. And Trish, while Jessica was not trying to be a superhero, but it just happened, Trish wanted to be that superhero but couldn't because she didn't have the powers. Well, if you remember in season 2, it led up to her wanting to do more and trying to do more, but Jessica was trying to stop her because she didn't want her to get hurt or whatever. But the passion within Trish was not happening. Rachel Taylor, if you will, who always does a great job as this character and very convincing. And I believe in the comics, Trish Walker is Hellcat, I believe, is the name of her character in the Marvel comic universe. And lo and behold, she ended up, during the process, the same doctor who kind of, did work on Jessica's mother, did work on Trish as well, which led to her getting these extra, agile abilities to be able to do, like, parkour type of, deals and everything. And then also she could see in the dark. So that was her power in here. Now, there's a negative to this whole thing too as well. But so I'll bring it up at the end. But then you got, Trish finally figuring it out. The also thing that happened last season, in the second season, is that Trish killed Jessica's mom because she thought that she was doing the right thing. In fact, she was more irrational because, unbeknownst to Trish, Jessica and her mom was starting to meet ties, only for Trish to shoot her square in the head just when they were making up. And she never knew that, and Jessica never forgave her for that leading up to this season. So they have that situation going on. In the middle of all this, you have Trish's mom, who also is in here, and I believe I forgot her name, Kate Walker. I forgot what her actual name is in the series, but I'll get it. But she was also in here as well, and they actually begin to have a better relationship with each other. Now, if you guys remember, Trish's mom would always, she was very abusive. She was extremely abusive in the series, and they started making amends because they had finally talked about all the things that she would do to her during the process of her, actually, Dorothy Walker. That's what it is. So her, Trish and Dorothy started making amends, and, Trish started letting her know all the things she was doing wrong. And Dorothy, to her respect, has been trying to make amends, and she's, unbeknownst to her and Jessica, she's done that, but not with Trish and not with Jessica. She's done that with other people, and by the end of the series, they started realizing that, unfortunately, it was kind of too late, because Dorothy became the latest victim of Foot Killer, and that really, really turned things around on Trish, and it ended up, it just went downhill for Trish's character. There's the saying in Batman and at Dark Knight, where does they actually say, live long enough to be the hero, or die a hero or live long enough to be the villain. And this is kind of what happened with Trish, because lo and behold, of all the things that have happened, Foot Killer himself, Gregory, actually killed Dorothy in the worst way. I mean, killed her, like put her into pieces and wrapped her up in duct tape to keep her together. It was brutal. It was very brutal, and it just drove Trish into what I call Frank Castle mode. So she became a villain to try to stop everybody that was harming everybody else, and including Gregory, who she was trying to get after. And it drove her to think that she was being a hero, but in fact, she was becoming more of a villain by killing everybody and not stopping them. Whereas Jessica wants to kill all of these people, but she does not, because she knows that there's a better way to handle things. And this, believe it or not, this led to Gregory not being the main villain. In fact, it became Trish being the main villain, which is a crazy twist and come full circle of the entire 3 seasons. It was, I really enjoyed how the storytelling of this came about. And I really loved it. In between all of this, you also have Eka Derville playing Malcolm Duquesne, who I didn't realize how much of a role he had in this show, but he is awesome in this show. He has evolved into such a well put together guy. He became his own private eye as well, and I just love the way he's grown for himself. And he's in the 3rd season, he's now questioned himself. If you guys remember, in the 2nd season, he came to the point that he wanted to be a better person, a private eye like Jessica. He was inspired by her, he was trained by her, and he wound up working with, of all people, Karen Ann Moss, who plays Haygarth, and who also is one of my favorite characters. I mean, Trinity from Matrix. Karen Ann Moss is power. She is sexy. She is also just, I can't tell you, man. She does it right. She always does it right. Well, he ends up working with her, and if you guys remember, Haygarth is not the most moralistic person in the world, and Jerry Haygarth plays sometimes the good. She's like, I think she's more Nick Fury than Nick Fury in some cases, from a standpoint that she a lot of times winds up actually doing good, but to do good, she has to do a lot of bad in order to do good. In a worse way. And a lot of that is being manipulative. A lot of it is like just going against all moral fiber to do so. And a lot of it is like, a lot of times she's defended superheroes, but she's defended villains as well. In this case, she's defended Gregory Solinger. And that's what kind of put Malcolm in his place, because it's like, he knows, in fact, that this dude has been killing and really going after Jessica, but he's contractually binded to work with Haygarth and that firm, in a law firm, to make sure that everything's going right. So he's in the middle of this. At the same time, he's dating this his girlfriend that just happens to work with the company, and she's very dedicated to Jerry. She is a fan. She is like one of Jerry's biggest fans in here, and she's looking to be every bit as good or bad as Jerry in this case. And it wasn't like Malcolm wasn't trying to hear it. So regardless, so all of this comes in, and it's just been like really, really crazy in here. There is also Eric Guyton, or Geldon, who actually, he is in the comic books as a character named Mindwave. But in here, he's playing Eric Geldon, and he has his power, actually, is that whenever somebody's doing incredibly... This is almost like he has a spider sense. Whenever somebody's doing incredibly evil, he gets a huge migraine headache. And the more evil that they are, the bigger the headache is. So he's kind of the lie detector for everybody. Like, Jessica's never driven to that way, so he's always been good to them. They've always been attracted to each other. He's also, has a sister who is a prostitute as well, and he's trying to make sure she's safe. And, it's a whole thing with her and Malcolm that they get into it. But just the stories in here are really great in here. But, he comes to find out that he's the one that ends up finding out that, like, Trish is getting out of hand. Like, he's getting very sick from being around her. So he ends up, he not only ends up being attracted to Jessica Jones, and they end up having a thing, they wind up, working together to help solve the case of Gregory Solinger, aka Foot Killer, and all the killings that he's doing here. So it's insane. This is really great. Detective Eddie Costa is also back. John Ventmigilla, I believe is his name, and he's been in this series since like the first season, I believe. What I didn't know about him is that he is actually gay. I mean, there's a lot of really great LGBTQ characters in here, and I didn't know that he was one of them. So, part of his story is that he's trying to help. He's working with Jessica now. He's now more aligned with Jessica more than he was against her in the last few seasons. So they're working together. They've gained a mutual respect for each other. And along the way, he wants to help Jessica, but he also is trying to make sure that he's make time for his husband, both of them are trying to adopt a kid. So that's a situation here in his case. So they play along with this throughout the entire season. There's also a brand new character that is now working with Jessica as Jessica's new assistant and secretary, I guess. Anish Self, which plays Gillian. I actually like this character a lot. She's a very sassy, don't take crap from Jessica, but she's very understanding and very moralistic about everything that Jessica's doing, and she defends her mostly to the end. And actually, she's ride or die. Interesting story about her is that both the character and the real life actress is actually a transgender, and Anish Seth is from India, and that's a really interesting thing that she is transgender and she's from that country. I know somewhat of that country does not take kindly to any of this type of culture or any of the people of that culture. So I'm sure there's a really great story behind this character, but I loved her character in this series. I thought she fits very well, and she was a great jump off to Jessica Jones. And when it got really tough, she almost gave up, but she didn't give up on Jessica. And I like that. I liked the direction that they went with her on there. So I thought that was a really, really good addition to it. She almost plays like the conscience to Jessica in some cases too in here. So, which end up replacing Malcolm after the first season. So I thought that was really well done here. And the other question here was, and the question I've asked from the get-go is, will we see any of the other defenders in this show, whether it was some, little, or all? And I am happy to say that we got redemption. We got closing. We got a little bit of closure here in the form of Luke Cage, who actually did appear in the final season of the show. And I was very happy to see, if not just for a little bit, it was awesome that we got to see Mike Coulter reprise his role as Luke Cage just for a little bit. They had this one segment where she comes in, he's just standing there right in front of the Alias door. Dapper Dan hooked him up once again. He had this really fly, only he could pull off yellow suit. It wasn't like a yellow, it was like a subtlety yellow. It was really swag. Black shirt, matching with the damn tie. You could tell this was a Dapper Dan original. You gotta love it. If you guys remember, Dapper Dan is one of the best of all time, clothing designers out there. He hooks you up, he dresses you up, makes you look tight. And man, this dude looked awesome. And not only that, it closed the door on what everybody was wondering, because if you remember on Luke Cage, at the end of the second season, before they stupidly canceled it, it looked like we didn't know what direction he was going. It looked like Luke Cage was like, he was going to become the new Kingpin or the new Cottonmouth or whatever like that, because he was taking over that club and everything. And it left us hanging. Left us on a huge cliffhanger. We didn't know what direction they was going. We heard from, if you watched, what was it? If you watched Cloak and Dagger, there was, if you remember, a few weeks ago, I made mention of this on about the episode of Cloak and Dagger, where Tyrone was reading off a newspaper that was talking about how Luke Cage was still fighting off, criminals and everything. So that was an indication that they still acknowledged him in a deal. And this right here closed it for us. It absolutely closed it by showing him in here. And not only that, they were talking about, he was being the moral compass for Jessica on what to do because of his experience with Diamondback, his brother, who he had to, defeat and send off to the raft. And he found out about what was going on with, they were talking about what was going on with Trish, and Jessica was talking about, I have a situation where it's a close relative of mine who was actually, doing some things wrong, and I, in the midst of whether I should try to stop her or not. And that's when Luke actually told her about, his fight with his, his actual brother, Diamondback, who had to go to the raft. So that helped her a lot into what she had to do with Trish. And it was awesome. So that actually, in a lot of cases, that closed the door as to where Luke Cage's morals lies. Is it still, in the good, even though he's kind of like upgraded himself? Or is it still in the bad? It looks like he's still on the side of good, which is awesome. And I really appreciate it. That really, I think of all the characters in the series, because in a sense, Daredevil closed, it was able to have closure. Iron Fist did not have closure. This series did have closure. And now Luke Cage kind of has closure as well, because it was preempted in its series. I think they could have had at least one more series to go, but it is what it is. And the fact of seeing him, I think it was very important to see Mike Coulter come back as Luke Cage in here as well. So we got to see that. And at the very end, it's unfortunate because Trish definitely went too far. Even though Jessica caught Foot Killer here, it just wasn't enough for Trish, because you gotta understand, she's in through I'm not justifying it, but she came into the house, to her apartment, and witnessed her mom sliced to pieces. A woman with an unstable superpower that she has not developed her ability in her mind like Jessica did. Yeah, she's going to go crazy. She's going to go batshit crazy. And it just wasn't enough that she caught him. She wanted him dead. And she super killed this dude. And that was the last straw for Jessica, to say, like, you killed like 2 to 3 people in your path. It's time for you to turn yourself in. And they end up at the end fighting. They had this battle, and it wound up that, she did it. And, she defeated her. But at the very end, when Detective Acosta, stopped, went into the room to talk to her in the interrogation room, I guess, he went down of all the crimes that she's committed. And she actually, at that very time, she went out and, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, let me not forget to mention that along with this, Trish went after Jerry Hogarth to try to, use her to get all of the criminals that she's, that's her clients, so she could kill it, because she wanted to rid herself of all the deals. Instead, Jerry went off to try and actually put her on a plane and get her out of the country, so she wouldn't have to, be arrested. And while people still don't know who's under the mask of, the killer of all these, or the superhero that was supposedly working with Jessica wound up going on TV and putting her on blast. and acknowledging that that's her sister and that's everything. So that was a situation before they end up fighting. So they wind up fighting. Jessica beats her, and lo and behold, again, when Detective Eddie Costa was in the interrogation room with her and letting her know all the crimes that she committed, it was right there that Trish realized that she's the bad guy. And from there, it went off. Jessica was about to, like, just after all of that would happen, and she watched her get taken away, and apparently is going to the raft as well, which is crazy because Trish was like one of the guys at the beginning of the series, and just the whole thing to turn around, it's awesome. So, she managed to do it. She managed to get out of there, and she was going to just go away to Mexico. And somehow, some way, we got a little wink moment as we saw what looked like to be Kilgrave's hand give her the train ticket or whatever to go to Mexico, and she and the voice of David Tennant saying, "Yeah, you want to go ahead and run away? That's what you want to do, Jessica?" And it was like she was like, "You know what? Nope, I'm staying. I'm going to keep going and doing this." So that was the ending of the series. I thought it ended very well. I thought this series brought everything full circle to the relationship of Trish and Jessica. I thought they did a really great job. I underestimated, this character, this foot killer character, but I thought they did a great job. I thought they did a tremendous job with him, and Jeremy Bobb, his performance in this really made it really creepy, really dark, really sadistic for a guy who does not look like that. And it's like, don't underestimate anybody. Don't ever underestimate anybody in this case. Even the most normal looking dude can be the most dangerous guy. So it was pretty, I really enjoyed the show. It may not have the biggest super villain in there, but what they did, it was all about the writing and the narrative in this thing. And I thought the strengths of this season was the narrative, was the storytelling, was the character direction. All of that was done greatly here. This was a much better season than the second. I still think the first one, it's hard to beat the first one, but if you put it all together, I absolutely loved it. Here's the situation. Although this was a great season and a great final season, ended off on a great note, closed some doors, this is not a series for everybody. This is not going to be the comic book series for everybody. And there's going to be people who are going to say it's bad because it's bad to them. Here's the reason why. This is a great series, but it's not for everybody, and here's why. I say this because there are different types of comic books for everybody. I started off reading the Archies, reading Casper, and reading Garfield before I ever evolved and graduated to like Spider-Mans and X-Men and all these other, hardcore, sophisticated, forms of content in the comic book world. It doesn't mean that it's a bad series. There are some comic book fans who has the brain set of the boom, bam, pow. And that's fine. They're action-based fans. They love a lot of action. There is some, in this other case, that may also like a little bit more subtle, sophisticated, story-driven, storytelling. And because it's related to Marvel, a lot of people are often going to have the misconception that this needs to be a little bit more action-based. This doesn't have to be action-based. The great part about the Marvel Cinematic Universe is that it's diverse. It has a lot of diversity. You have your action-based stuff, you got your comedy stuff, you got your drama stuff. You have stuff for the kids, you got stuff for teens in the essence of freeform. Not everything is going to be for everybody. That does not mean Jessica Jones is not a bad series. It is, in fact, a phenomenal series. It's just that some people doesn't have the mind capacity or mindset to be able to handle the narrative, story-driven, character-driven series, because all they're waiting for is the powers to come out, for them to throw cars everywhere and all that stuff. They're waiting for that. This was not it. This was subtlety. This was about storytelling. This was about character direction. And if you're into that type of thing, there's and this is always a debate with comic book fans too, when it goes to comic books. You rather have fans who love the art only and doesn't really focus on the writing. You got fans that are only focused on the writing and doesn't care what the art looks like. You know, I'm in between that in some cases because as an artist, I do love great artwork, but I do like some good storylines too. And I was that person who was all about the art, who wanted to see the powers go, who wanted to see the action and all that stuff. But I kind of grown to evolve and assimilate to both appreciations of things. So I am a great fan of the writing as well and the character direction as well nowadays, as much as I am with the art. If you got the best of both worlds, it's awesome. I absolutely do. In this case, this is a very heavy story driven, heavy character direction. They do show them doing abilities, not as much as I would like per se. Like it was like with the X-Men. When Magneto shows that he has magnetism, I would at least want to see some waves, some invisible waves of something that shows that he is levitating an object. It's kind of like that with hair. They used a lot of parkour, a lot of smoke and mirrors and such to do some of the things that they do. Like when Jessica flies, it's hilarious to see her hop up and then she's on the roof. I just love what I love about this series is that when they do stuff like that, it reminds me of the old school way that they produce. I could give an example. The $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman. That's the way that they filmed this. That's the way that it reminds me of. So when she does when she uses her power or anything, they don't use CGI. They use very subtle tricks of filming to make it seem like it appear that she's doing these things. That's both kind of good and bad in a sense, because it's good because it's, you know, using your brain to try to come up with really clever ways to do that. It's bad because, like, in a sense, I do want to see her do a little bit more in some of the action scenes, a little bit more to it, but I get it. You know, they lack in action. They did do in very good character-driven stuff. So if you know, a lot of times there are people, I had to talk about this with a friend of mine just recently, like I was just on a few hours prior to this show. It's not for everybody, and that's okay. Just because you're a Marvel comic fan, you're not going to like every Marvel comic. There's some people who enjoy Thor, the first two Thors. There are people who did not, because it's Thor. And the normal Thor narrative is that it's kind of slow, dramatic, a little over dramatic, and, you know, Shakespearean, if you will, to some cases. It doesn't go off the way, but Thor Ragnarok was a little bit more open to everybody. And we got to see throughout all the Avengers films that, you know, because of the character direction and him being around the Earthlings or the Midgard, you know, people for so long that he wound up assimilating their personalities and their characteristics. So it was, you know, it was great to see. But here, Jessica Jones, I think is you know, if you put all three together, it's a great series. But again, it's not for everybody, and that's okay. If you don't like it because it doesn't have enough action, there's other ones to watch. If you do like it because of the character story and everything, then this is for you. And I think this has a fan base for those who like that type of fan base. I mean, there's some comic books out there right now that people aren't into. They're like indie comics out there that people aren't into because it's just so far off from the main, you know, three, if even like DC, Marvel, and Image. You know, there always been Dark Horse Comics. We just mentioned that they always had some comics that people weren't into because it didn't have the main characters and it didn't do the same fundamentals that everybody was liking, and there's some action scenes and everything. But that's okay. Doesn't mean it's a bad comic. It's just not for you. And this is the same way. So if I give this a grade, if I give this an actual grade, I give this an A-. This gets, like, for me, I really enjoyed it because it went full circle. It did everything, and, you know, they gave us some things that we love. They answered some questions that we might have had in the other seasons and other shows. So I think an A- would have been good. And the only reason why I give it an A- is because I would have loved to see just a tiny bit more action, but also a tiny bit more of Jessica being able to do some things that she could do. But otherwise, it doesn't take anything away from the full story of things and everything. I was glued to the TV the entire day binging and watching this whole thing. So it gets an A- for me on that note. But for the full series gets a B+ because of the second season. It wasn't as good. I think the second season was kind of the weakest of the bunch. So in that case, I give it a whole entire series a B+. But you know, you had one phenomenal season, you had one okay season, then you had another comeback season that was just like, okay, this came back full circle. It was great, and it actually kind of helped develop the second season a little bit more and made sense of it. So, and the storyline stayed consistent. The story and the characters stay consistent. That's what I love about that. So, kudos to them. Congratulations to Kristen Ritter, who is expecting very soon, if not already. But she's doing her thing. I look forward to seeing what all of these guys are doing next. And, man, hopefully we get to see these guys again someday. Because just all of them. The entire Defenders did great. I will miss that series, but if you own Netflix, you will always be able to see all of those episodes and all of those shows again at your convenience, because they still own the rights to those series. It's theirs to own, so they can watch them at any time. So stick to that. Ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for this edition of A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live. Thank you guys very much. Just to let you know, next week I am going away, so there will be no show. There may be a select start this week because I did get Cadence of Hyrule. And, of course, Shang Tsung is coming to Mortal Kombat, so we get to check him out as well, amongst other gamings, the aftermath of E3 and all that much. So there's probably going to be plenty of actual gaming news to talk about this week. So expect it could be possibly out. Don't, but expect an actual select start this week. But as far as the Prime show, I will be away. I will be back next week. Prior to that week, so stay tuned for all that and much more, folks. Thank you so very much. Keep following us. You can follow me on Instagram at Xavier Josiah. I always got to keep remembering to do that. At Xavier Josiah, you can check me out there, and you could also follow this show on TalkTimeLive.com. You can check out our exclusives at TalkTimeLive.com/exclusives, or just go to the exclusive page of TalkTimeLive.com. You can also follow us and subscribe to us on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Play, Podbean, and probably much more than that. But there's all the main primary places you can check us out from there. So thank you guys so very much, and I hope you have a great weekend. Again, happy Father's Day to all of the great fathers, the true superheroes of the parenthood. Well, that along the mom and the pop. Let me not get into that situation. But happy Father's Day, because I mean the mothers get a lot of praise, but the good fathers out there really doesn't get enough, and we definitely need a lot more of them out there. So kudos to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. That will do it. On behalf of myself, this is Xavier Josiah saying, learn to let go, live life, and love all things anime, comics, movies, and games. This is A.C.M.G. Presents Talk Time Live. I am out of here. Take care and have a great week. Music for this episode is provided by Game Chops. Check out these great chiptune tracks and more at music.gamechops.com.